Primitive War is an Australian sci-fi horror film directed by Luke Spark based on the book by Ethan Paitis. Set in 1968 during the Vietnam War, Primitive War tells the story of Vulture Squad, a unit sent behind enemy lines to retrieve a platoon of Green Berets who went missing in a valley only to discover a Soviet experiment has gone horribly wrong and brought dinosaurs into the present day. Hi, my name is Sean. Welcome to the Courageour Frights channel. We talk about movies and video games, mostly horror related, sometimes action, sci-fi, kind of run the gamut there. So this is Primitive War. This is a movie that a lot of people have been excited for, especially in the dinosaur community. It's based on a book, like I said, which I do actually have here, but unfortunately I haven't read it yet. I'm planning on getting to that soon. So, my thoughts on this movie. So, I guess I'm going to go with my cons first. So, it's not a perfect movie. Very few films are. I would say the visual effects at some points are a bit weak, but that's kind of a given that the budget is allegedly $7 million, which, if true, is about half of Godzilla Minus One in Shin Godzilla. So, that's pretty damn impressive. The acting at some points is a bit uneven. There's a few characters in this that have almost cartoonish Russian accents, which I don't really mind since Russia is essentially a cartoon villain country at this point. And you've got this one kind of subplot with these Russian squad and a Vietnamese scout that's kind of extraneous. You could have probably cut that completely and it wouldn't have really affected the film any. The dinosaur stuff I like for the most part, although the ending is a bit ridiculous and is, from my understanding, is completely different from the book. So there's a point at the end where there's just tons of raptors attacking this group of people, and it gets into kind of bonkers Looney Tunes territory. But aside from that, and some inconsistencies, especially with the raptors. Some scenes earlier in the film, they seem to be near bulletproof, and then towards the end, they seem to be much easier to kill, which, I mean, I guess is a good thing because there's so many of them. And just from the standpoint of biology, the dinosaurs in this don't act like animals, much like Jurassic Park dinosaurs. Kind of a common problem in all dinosaur media, really, is that the dinosaurs just constantly attack like monsters, and in reality, you think shooting at them and explosions and everything else would chase them away. So, but I guess that's a nitpick. So overall, those are my cons. The big downsides of the film, which isn't a whole lot. So then we get into the pros. So overall, even though I said at some points the visual effects are a bit uneven, overall I would say they're quite good, especially given such a low budget. There's one scene in particular, which inevitably we're going to compare this to Jurassic World, the newest one, Rebirth. There's actually a couple weird comparisons between those two movies. There's one, a T-Rex in a river scene, and the second is that they both feature Quetzalcoatlus prominently, which is a very large pterosaur. However, the point I'm going to make here is that there's a scene where the Quetzalcoatlus flies over a field in Primitive War, and because they chose to give this one sort of fur-like feathers, when it flies, the feathers are moving with the wind, and that detail is so much more complex than the Quetzalcoatlus that's seen in the Jurassic World Rebirth, even though that has approximately 20 times the budget of this film at least. So there's some very, very impressive things done with such a small visual effects budget. Of course, like I said, there's going to be scenes that don't quite look fantastic, but the amount of stuff we've got here that does look great is phenomenal, given the budget. I think the main cast is all competent. Their performances are all pretty well done. The lead female actor, I've seen some people complain about her accent, Sophia. She's also doing a fake Russian accent, but I think it stands up much better than the side characters. I lived in Poland for a while, and I knew people that sounded similar to her, so it's not that far-fetched of an accent, especially, like I said, compared to some of the side characters. something I really liked here was the R-rated carnage. So this film, much more so than any of the Jurassic Park movies, the Jurassic Park book has some R-rated carnage, but the movies have never really gone into that darker, more bloody territory. They've always been PG-13 adventure affairs, and this film, not only the gore, but the plot itself, how the dinosaurs come into being, is very reminiscent of Dino Crisis, the 90s video game. So if you're a fan of that old Capcom game from PlayStation 1, you might get some enjoyment out of this as well. And it's very action heavy, especially the end, which I think gets a little too action heavy in my opinion, but still holds up. Some of the stuff they try to do is at least admirable with the effects budget. They throw some craziness at the end with the horde of raptors attacking and the helicopters flying around in a thunderstorm with Quetzalcoatlus in the sky, and it's just insane. And especially knowing how low the budget was, they tried to give it their all there at the end. And I think overall they did a pretty good job. The T-Rex attack on the Soviet compound is particularly cool. Very fun. A bit over the top in some places, but overall I think that the overall feel of the film is a success in my opinion. You've got the style of Aliens, Predator, Dog Soldiers, which I think has the most in common with this film, actually, given the low budget and the general premise of them going to try to retrieve a special forces unit that disappeared, which I guess also Predator has that. But it seemed kind of like Dog Soldiers with dinosaurs, in my opinion, which Dog Soldiers is one of my favorite werewolf movies, so that's not a negative in any form there. So I think that this is a pretty good movie overall, especially given all the things all the strikes against it with the low budget and the limited release. This was initially a 1-week in theater release, and I think they have since added a second week. So if you're in a theater that's nearby, if you don't know, you can check Fathom events. Unfortunately, I think it's only in the United States and Australia, but I think they are trying to roll that out to a wider audience. They may get a wider release beyond this, but I'm not quite sure. So I saw this a few days ago, so I figured I would give my thoughts on it before it kind of disappeared from theaters altogether, just in case you were wondering if you should see this or not. I recommend it. And if you have a theater nearby, I had to travel about an hour and a half to go see this movie, so there's not a lot of showings, but I think they did expand a little bit on the second week, so hopefully you have the option to see this, especially if you're a big fan of dinosaur films and you're looking for something besides the Jurassic franchise. So that's it for my review of Primitivore. If you like this, give us a thumbs up, consider subscribing for more content like this in the future, and you too could feel the strength welling within. See ya.